Hi everyone, thank you for coming to, I was going to say today, but it is at some point, for another session from Justin from Poodle. He'll tell you more about himself in a moment, but we just really thank you again, Justin, for coming back to iMoot and to be a part of our wonderful online conference. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Wendy. I'm really glad to be here. It's 10 p.m. here in Japan, and the first webinar I gave for the iMoot this year was at 6 a.m. here in Japan. So I've been, and before that I was awake quite early getting ready for it. So I've been awake the whole time. So if I sound a bit lost, it's probably because of the time factor. But I'm really happy to talk about first steps in developing for Moodle, because believe it or not, I myself was in fact a fledgling Moodle developer not so long ago, and I do recall just how hard it was to get into it. And I programmed various platforms before and various other languages, not PHP before, and I remember getting into Moodle and it was like, what the heck kind of world is this? It really was quite mysterious. So to be on the other end of things and telling people how to do it, I feel like I actually can, because I had to go through that process myself. So I'm really happy to do that. And I see in the chat that Dana says she is using Poodle with their Spanish classes and a virtual exchange with Spanish and English, which is really cool. That's kind of like the kind of thing you like to hear when you make a piece of software. So as aspiring developers or existing developers or people who are interested in development, I'm hoping that what we talk about today can be helpful and help you move forward in that. And what are we going to talk about today? Well, the first thing I want to talk about is just about Moodle and development in general. And then I want to talk very briefly about Git, because I think Git is central to Moodle development. Then the Moodle development environment, which is quite important and not as simple as it perhaps we'd like it to be. And then I want to talk, I guess the main thing we're going to do in this presentation is talk about setting up a development environment for Moodle 3.3 on Cloud9, a Cloud9 IDE. And finally, hopefully we'll have time, we'll talk about using the plugin skeleton generator, which is a really neat plugin for Moodle that was developed as a Google Summer of Code project, and it really fills a gap where we didn't have anything to kind of help us make templates for the various plugins, the various plugin types that are available in Moodle. So I'm hoping that will be useful for you guys too. And if I talk too fast, or my New Zealand accent is too strong, or I slur because it's late at night and I've been drinking coffee all day, then please tell me. So let's talk about Moodle and development in general. In Moodle, we have Moodle Core, which is actually a neat set of APIs and plugins, very robust, and we have a very wide range of plugin types. There are in fact over 43 different types of plugins. I counted them at one point. We had 43, but there are probably more than that now. Those include sub-plugins. Some of them you can see here are repositories and HTML editor icons and authentication methods, activity modules, portfolios, blocks. So there are lots of different types of plugins, and most of what we use are in fact plugins. So that's really that's quite interesting to think about, because in fact everybody who is developing these core things that you see in Moodle, like the assignment module or the quiz module, they're in fact using the very same plugins or very same APIs, that you'll be using when you create your plugins. So you can create something that is just as good and just as valid a Moodle citizen as those core plugins that you see. Moodle as a framework is very robust and very full-featured. We have capabilities and permissions, we have user management, backup and restore, navigation, forms, logging. We have a database abstraction layer, so you can be working with MySQL or PostgreSQL or MariaDB. We have a kind of a virtual file system, which is managed with the permissions and capabilities, which is really amazing. We have background and scheduled tasks, which we use a lot in Poodle, and we have internationalization. So it's really a full framework for application development. I think it's not limited to being used as an LMS, but for the most part, that is what it is used as. In general, when you're developing with Moodle, I think perhaps the best advice I could give people is to patrol the Moodle.org docs and forums, because there is good documentation now, which there wasn't when I first began, and there are people on the forums now who are very knowledgeable and very helpful. Guys like Tim Hunt and Davo Smith, who really do know their stuff, and they're not actually Moodle.org developers there. They work for different organizations, but they're very helpful, and for fledgling developers, these are a really good resource for you. Searching Google is a really good thing. It's actually faster than searching Moodle.org. Another one which I think people tend to neglect is getting very familiar with Moodle. I think even now I'm still learning things about Moodle that I did not know, and it's amazing how far you can go with out-of-the-box Moodle and with plugins in Moodle without doing any development at all. I think that's something that we need to think about before we actually start coding. Keeping notes on what you do and what you learn is very important, because it helps you remember those things, and also later on when you come back to something that you've made or something that you've crafted, it can actually be quite a learning experience to have to go 6 months back to know what you learned 6 months previously. So I think keeping notes is really important. Reading other people's code is very useful. Keeping cheat sheets of Git and other commands. Learning Git is actually really useful, so we'll talk a bit more about Git as we go forward. And in general with Moodle, and perhaps with development in general, just-in-time learning is really useful, a really important concept, because you won't know everything from the outset. With all those capabilities and features that we saw earlier that are in the Moodle framework and all different plugin types, you just simply won't understand everything. And it's quite important to learn or to be comfortable with working in a blur or working in a fog. You don't necessarily understand everything that you're working with. So I think people find that a bit hard to take in at first. They feel like they need to understand everything that they see. But not every line of code that you see is something that you have the time to understand what it's doing. And in actual fact, you do want to know what it's doing, and if you can find that out, that's really good and useful. But there's so much code in Moodle, and there's so many APIs that I think it's best to learn what you need to learn when you need to learn it. And that's the best advice I can give, I think. Relation to that is it's more important to know how to learn than it is to know, because if you need to know something, go and learn it. That's a really good way of looking at things, I think. So get comfortable not knowing what to do, and then going and finding out how to do that thing that you need to know. Trish says in the chat, not sure about being comfortable about not knowing what to do, but had to learn to live with and ask. Yeah, well, that's basically it. It's a bit like kind of life. We don't want to get too deep, but it really is a bit like that, especially when you live in a foreign language based country. You just have to get by with not knowing everything that you hear, and at a certain point in time you do understand everything, but you only get to that point having worked through the fog. Okay, so let's keep moving. If you ask questions in the chat, I will ask those. If you make funny comments like "just in time must be a pun," then I'll laugh, but I might not comment back. Okay. About Git. So what is Git? Git is a system to maintain snapshots of a set of files. So a plugin is a set of files. You've got like version.php, you've got the DB folder, you've got whatever other files are in the plugin, and those form a set of files. And Git helps you maintain repositories, which are sets of files which move through different stages or different versions. They change over time. Different files within the set change, and it's not in lockstep. And Git helps you kind of manage that process, and it also helps you share those snapshots with other people. So people can, work with your existing code, they can work with previous code, or they can submit changes to your current code for you to implement in a future version. Git helped me get into trouble. Yeah, well, Git is really confusing. So I'm not going to say like it's really easy. It's like one of those things I talk about being in the fog. But having said that, these are the basic commands for Git. They're git init, which creates an empty repository of files. and then you add files to that repository. That's git add. Then we have git checkout, which helps you move between branches or to create a new branch if you didn't have a new branch. So think of a branch as a version. Git stash here. So I don't want to get ahead of people. So git stash is a method of saving changes that you've made to an existing branch. Git commit. So you've made some changes and you want to save those changes and you want to save them into a particular branch. You use git commit. Git push pushes your changes to a remote repository. So let's say you're working locally, but you want now you're done and you want to change those to the remote repository, which everybody can see, which is on GitHub, which is the biggest online Git repositories system. You would use git push. And git pull, this is the reverse of git push. You fetch changes from a remote repository into your local repository on your own machine. And git clone is where you get started up with somebody else's repository or with your own repository, but a fresh instance of that. Don't worry too much if you don't know about Git now. Just know that this is something that is good to know, and these are some of the concepts that you'll need when you get started. When you learn a foreign language, it's said that you often need to learn or you need to encounter a word 7 or 8 times before it actually becomes a part of your vocabulary. And that's, I think it's true of learning in general. So don't worry too much if you don't understand what you see, but this is maybe the first or the second or the third time that you've encountered it, and we're moving that into your sphere of learning. The Git puns are coming strong there. Mike says Git in a pickle many times, especially with submodules. Yeah, I don't get too excited about submodules and even tags. I just kind of try to keep it simple. It's my New Zealand background probably. Let's talk about the Moodle development environment. So Moodle 3.3 came out this week, which was a big deal. Actually, Matt, you're right. Gareth is a Git ninja, and it always makes me a bit nervous about submitting any changes or using some of what he does. But he does it very well, so he's a good guy to ask if you want to talk about Git. Gareth Bernard, he's the maintainer of the Essential theme and many other themes, cool themes, Shoelace and Shoehorn and other ones. So he's around here on the Moot this year. Anyway, the Moodle development environment, Moodle 3.3. You'll need PHP 5.6.5 or PHP 7.0 or PHP 7.1. As Moodle goes through the versions, it often upgrades the PHP and MySQL or MariaDB or PostgreSQL requirements. So that's something you need to keep aware of, and it's actually quite hard to upgrade your environment just to keep track of a new Moodle version. It's really a bit of a pain in the ass, but it is something we need to do. And I will be talking about a process that manages that a bit more easily shortly. So for development, do you want to use an IDE, which is an integrated development environment, or do you want to use a text editor? And if you want to use a text editor, the benefit of this is it's very simple, it's very lightweight, and pretty much on any machine you're working on, you can use some sort of program as text editor probably, and an FTP client to simply update your changes. You lose a lot of features which are available in IDEs, such as debugging and code completion and these other features. Some of the popular IDEs are PHP Storm, NetBeans, Eclipse, and Cloud9. For the longest time, I was a text editor guy. I didn't really use IDEs. I distrusted them and didn't like being tied to an IDE, because I think when you're beginning development in a new language or in a new platform, if you use an IDE, you can be stuck on the IDE without really understanding the details of the platform. However, recently I've drifted towards using PHP Storm quite heavily. But the other one we're going to use today is Cloud9, which is free, and it's online, so you can do everything from your web browser. And I want to quickly talk about debugging, because this is an area which we, as a newbie developer in Moodle, you really need to know what to do when you run into a pickle. So the first thing is to turn on debugging. So in Moodle we have different levels of error messages or warning messages that are delivered to you, and you can turn those on and up probably to the developer level at site admin, development, debugging, and turn those up to developer level, and then you will get nice Moodle debug messages. If you also check that those are returned to the browser, that's the best, because that will they'll be available right on the browser for you to see. If you want to debug to a log or some other location, you can write to the error log directly using, this is PHP, error_log and then some information, or echo some information, or print_r. They will print an object to the screen. So if you're dealing with an object and you want to know what are the contents of the object, then use print_r. mtrace, actually I must admit I'm not actually aware to any great level of what mtrace does, but it seems to bridge the gap, so it writes to standard out. So if you're working with a scheduled task or something that happens in cron, they will actually write to that log, but if you're working on the screen, it'll actually write to the screen, so it's a good coverall. There are probably people who understand mtrace more than I do. The browser console is a tool I use a lot. It's available in any browser. You can see the JavaScript that's running, you can see the network requests, you can even debug your JavaScript from within the browser console, and you can make changes to the CSS on the page also. And so this is very useful, especially when you're asked to support something that you've made and they don't give you admin access and you need to know what's going on. Often by looking at the browser console you can get some indication of what the heck is going on or why they're getting this particular issue. So I use it a lot. Right, so let's talk about setting up Cloud9 and Moodle, and then I'll drop into screen share and actually set up a Moodle 3.3 development environment on Cloud9 in real time, and hopefully that will work out nicely, and we will be able to make a plugin using the development environment that we set up. So I'll go through quickly so that I can start on that, and then I'll come back on this. So the first thing is to get a Cloud9 account. Cloud9 is free, and to make it very simple, you can use your GitHub account to log in. So if you don't have a GitHub account, I think it's pretty best to actually go and get a GitHub account first, because as a Moodle developer, you really need to use GitHub, which is the main Git repository online, and most of the plugins that are available on Moodle, and most of Moodle, well, in fact, Moodle code itself is available on GitHub. So it's a really good place to do your development, to store your code. And to make it real easy for you, I've got Poodle Guy's super sneaky do-it-all-for-you Git script is available, and that is available at https://github.com justinhuntmoodle-cloud9. So that's what we're going to use today. I'll show you how to do that. This will create a complete Moodle workspace for you on Cloud9, which includes debugging and includes setting up your JavaScript environment, and it's a full IDE setup, so you can just start coding Moodle straight up from your workspace on Cloud9. This is actually a copy of the README, but the README is available on the GitHub page, which I linked to in the previous slide, and that's probably a better place to consume this than here on the PowerPoint. So what does it look like when we do this? Well, the first thing we do is we click on the Create a New Workspace icon or block in Cloud9. Then we enter the workspace name. We need to remember that because we'll need that later. And then we select, or we enter the GitHub URL that we're going to clone from. So we're going to clone from Moodle-Cloud9 that we saw before, and then we choose the template, basically the template for the server, which is going to be PHP, Apache, and MySQL. So those will be installed for us. And then we're going to create a workspace from that Git script, and this will be very simple. It will actually just be the setup script which I have created, which is actually going to upgrade your Ubuntu server, your virtual Ubuntu server, to PHP 7. Then it's going to install Moodle. Then it's going to install all the various dependencies that Moodle has, for example, PHP curl, and it will upgrade your MySQL database to be of the correct collation for Moodle 3.3, and then you'll be ready to develop. So what does it look like? You'll type, after you've set up the workspace, you'll type /setup.sh, and about 10 minutes later you'll enter your Cloud9 username, in my case it's Poodle Guy, and your Cloud9 workspace name, in my case it's mymoodle33, and that will finish the installation for you, and then you can simply start the web server and navigate to it in your browser to complete the installation from the URL that's served up in the terminal area. You'll see that, so if it's mysterious now, it won't be mysterious shortly. Okay, and after that we're going to use the Moodle plugin skeleton generator, which was a cool thing developed by Alexandru in the Google Summer of Code. But let's drop now into screen share, and we'll actually go and create that Moodle development environment. So dropping into screen share is no mean feat for me. It always seems to get me in trouble. It got me in trouble this morning at 6 AM. And here at 10 PM or 10:30 PM at night, let's hope it doesn't do the same thing for me. So start. Got my thing. Starting my screen sharing session. It takes a few moments. I've practiced extensively with screen share. It always seems to be a problem for me because I'm on different machines and different locations and different networks and things. So it's not necessarily a problem, big blue button if it doesn't work for me. It's really just the fact that I don't have a consistent environment. Oh, we seem to be okay, so just hold fire and we'll be here in a moment, I think. Are we not okay? May in fact not be okay, so let's see what's happening here. Okay, it doesn't seem to have worked, so let's try again, shall we? So cancel and start again. Start. Yeah, so there's a little message there. So screen share JLNB5. Open that baby up. Yep. Choose to accept that. Now, ideally, we would see a brief download screen. I wonder if it's not hiding something. Let me just try reducing my browser. Okay, we don't seem to be having much fun here. Okay, so we're not getting any joy from our screen sharing team. So I have prepared, something should this happen. So we're not completely out of luck, but it would be a bit disappointing. So let me just try. Let me just move my mouse off the screen here and see what we can do. I'm using a double screen environment, and that may possibly have confused it. That could be the case. I'm going to close my window so I can see if there's anything hiding under here. Right. Okay. Where's Fred Daniels when we need him? We'll try one more time. If this doesn't work, then we'll call it a day, I guess. Oh, something was different this time around. This time around, something else happened. So I think we're going to work. This is nice, isn't it? Sorry for all the drama, everybody. Everybody is on the edge of their seats, but I think we actually have a winner. I did, in fact, once in Poodle have a screen sharing little thing, and so I'm aware of just how tricky it is to get screen sharing working. So I really wouldn't have anything bad to say about big blue button on screen sharing. If you can get screen sharing going, you're really awesome. Okay, so I think it's working. Can you just type in your little chat there if you can see something? Great, that's wonderful. So what can you see there? You can see that screen. Okay, that's good. That's good. So you can see my little the green screen, right? Okay, that's good. Okay, that's going to work out. Let's go to Cloud9. So you can see here on the login screen that we have the option to log in with GitHub there. So that's what we will do, because GitHub is nice, and we only need one set of credentials. And this should be familiar to you, because we saw previously that we're going to create a new workspace using our super sneaky Justin Git script. So let's call this super sneaky. And being super sneaky, it's being so super sneaky, I didn't actually keep a record of my own Git script. Let me just load that up for me. Not too wrong with it. Sorry, everybody, this is me not being quite prepared enough. So I should have done this. Here it is. And we enter our Git script here, our Git URL here, and we choose PHP, Apache, and MySQL. So we have a workspace name, which is super sneaky. Our username is Poodle Guy in this case, and we have our Git URL here. And when we choose Create Workspace, it's going to go and create a brand new Ubuntu virtual server, which will then clone our Git script and create what will be our Moodle development environment. We'll actually have to run that Git script, and that Git script takes about 10 minutes to run. So while we're doing that, we'll move forward. We'll do something else while we're waiting for that to complete. And that'll just about take us to the end of our webinar. Okay, so this is the Moodle, this is the Cloud9 IDE, and you can see on the left-hand side here we have the project files, the files that are in our project. You can see those here. On the right-hand side, we have Collaborate, so we can actually share our workspace with other people, which is something we do in the Moodle Bytes courses. So we can actually have our students create workspaces and work on plugins and code here, and as teachers we can go in and work with them on their own code rather than using this clunky way of screenshots or sending zip files to each other. We have a debugger over here, so once we run our project and enable debugging, we can set breakpoints and watch expressions and can step over and step in, so it's very nice. Okay, what we want to do right now is to set up our development environment, so we just need to use the Git script that I have set up for us, .setup.sh, and that will go through now and upgrade our workspace to PHP 7 with the correct version of MySQL or MariaDB, and also with Moodle 3.3. It takes about 10 minutes, so let's move on. So just because of the way things are, I don't want to quit screen sharing now that I've begun it so successfully. So I want to keep going with screen sharing, so I'm not going to stop that now. I'm just going to keep going with that. So we're now screen sharing. Again, I want to go through and show you about the plugin skeleton generator. And this is going to work. I'll show it to you here. So the Moodle plugin skeleton generator was written by Alexandru Elise. I don't know how to pronounce it, I'm sorry, but it was mentored by David Mudrak, and it's really a big development and quite a useful thing, because up until now, if you wanted to create a new enrollment plugin, or you wanted to create a new block plugin or a new activity plugin, there were templates out there, but they're very ad hoc and created by developers when they needed them and not maintained. And the skeleton generator is actually really, it's a little bit, you'll still need guidance to use this, especially in the early days. But once we get a bit more down the track, I think we'll have recipes that are available for creating plugins of a certain nature much more easily. It doesn't really hide the need to know how to program or to understand Moodle, but it certainly makes making a new plugin a lot less hit and miss. To access the skeleton generator, you'll go to Site Admin, Plugins Development, and you'll need to install it first. Once you've done that, there'll be a Generate Plugin Skeleton option there for you. And then you will simply fill in the fields to create the plugin type. In this case, we're going to create a new block, and you'll need to know about blocks. I mean, if you look at the template itself or the skeleton itself, it's going to be really hard for you to understand what to do unless you understand about blocks. So the first thing is to understand about blocks. But the basic steps for doing this are to fill in the fields, to download the generated plugin zip file, and then install the plugin, make sure it runs, and then start coding. To create the new block, you'll need to use these actually screenshots from the skeleton generator, and you can see you have to enter the copyright settings, the component name, the release, the version, the required Moodle version, the maturity. There's a lot of settings to enter. In the case of a block, you'll need to specify that you want to have an edit form. So once the block has been created, the user can edit some settings, and that you can have multiple instances. You'll also need to specify where this block can be displayed or where it cannot be displayed. And associated with that, you'll need to specify capabilities, because the Moodle block requires an add instance capability so that somebody can actually add an instance of that block to a page. Finally, you'll download the plugin skeleton, and then you'll actually take that plugin zip file, it will be a zip file, and then install it on your Moodle environment. So let's do it now, come on. Can you all hear me okay? If there's any issues, can you just type in, or if there's not any issues, can you type in the chat there, because it's been very quiet. I'm not sure everybody's still seeing me after all this screen sharing. Okay, great. Matthew says he can hear us, so that's nice. Okay, so here we have my Skeleton 3 Cloud9 environment and a workspace, and this is where I've been coding away a few things. It's Moodle 33. So I'm going to start the web server, and let's actually access the web server and run the plugin skeleton generator. So let's run project. Now when we do that, we can see in the lower area here, this is the terminal, or a terminal of sorts. We have the Apache output. If we click on the URL that's generated there, if we open that, that will open in a new tab. And this is the index.html file that we created with our Git script earlier. One of the links will take us to the Moodle site. The other link will take us to the PHP MyAdmin site for this particular workspace. You'll need both of those as a developer. Let's go to the Moodle site. Okay, so we're on our Moodle site. We're not logged in yet, so let's log in. Admin. Password 123. Whatever it might be. We have, of course, the Poodle demo course. But let's go through now to that plugin skeleton generator. So we go to Site Admin. Development, and you can see here we have the generate plugin skeleton. Now I have actually already installed this plugin. It's not a core plugin. It's really cool, and I think there's a good future for this plugin, but it's not a core plugin yet, so you'll need to install it. Okay, great. And we're going to add, in this case, look at all these plugin types. Look at that. Look at all these plugin types that we could create. So there's a huge number of them. So it's daunting as a new developer, but it's also quite nice that this tool is going to provide, some way for us to do this. So we wanted to do a block, okay, block, and the component name we'll call it, what do we decide? Super Sneaky, right? Super Sneaky. That's actually the name of the other Poodle workspace, which is still being created. How is that going? Let's check. How's the new workspace being? Okay, it's actually finished. So I'm sorry, we're going to jump tasks here, but let's do that now. At the very bottom of our Moodle development environment creation script running, it's asking us for our Cloud9 username. This is to create a config file for Moodle that will be useful, of course. So let's enter our Cloud9 username, which in this case is Poodle Guy. Oh, I have to get focus to the screen, sorry. And our Cloud9 workspace name, which in this case is Super Sneaky. Well, so that has actually gone now and created our development environment and a Moodle workspace, and subscribed our database to UTF-8MB4, which is what is required in Moodle 3.3. It's Moodle messing with us there. So let us run the project. Matt makes a good point in the chat. He says, Justin, that plugin appears to be only available for 3.1, but works fine in 3.2 and 3.3. That's absolutely correct, yes. So as a developer, that's kind of obvious to you that you just don't have time to update your plugin through the various versions at times, especially if you're like a Google Summer Code project person and you move on. But it does work fine in 3.2 and 3.3, but it will require somebody to keep maintaining it. And later when we go to specify a minimum version for our plugin using the skeleton generator, we'll see that in fact the options only go up to 3.1, even though 3.2 and 3.3 are now here. So that's just something we have to deal with. Okay, so I know I'm jumping between two workspaces, the one that we just created and the one that we started creating the new plugin on. But let us just continue with the one that we created, the super sneaky workspace. And let me create, let me start basically the web server and run the Moodle installation script, because the Cloud9 get super sneaky script only goes as far as creating the development environment, but does not in fact go through and install Moodle through the steps. So you'll need to do that manually. That's what we're doing here. And the Moodle, if there is a problem with the Cloud9 IDE, it's that sometimes it's a bit slow. And in this case, you can see that we can see that here. It's actually quite slow going through this process of setting up the installation for Moodle 3. So let me just kind of like jump tabs and go back to our plugin skeleton generator. So we have our block and we have our super sneaky component name, proceed with the manual generation. And now we enter all those screens that we saw previously. So it's going to be 2017. Justin Hunt, HTTPS, Moodle.com. The release, so if you're not actually sure what to put in here, the hints will give us something. This is a human readable version name that should help to identify each release of the plugin, which means it's kind of free, so you can put anything. But it's kind of by convention, you will put, you know, something like this, 1.0.0 build 2017 051800. And this is in fact the version number that we're going to use for this one. This is Matt in the chat there. He alluded to this. This plugin, in fact, only goes up to 3.1, even though we're on 3.3 now, but we're going to leave it at 3.1. That's the required minimum Moodle version. The maturity is beta. The name is super sneaky. Let's call it iMoot. Well, let's call it super sneaky Pukunui, because the Pukunui are awesome enough to put on this cool iMoot thing. Okay, check all the settings. We have an edit form in multiple instances. This is a block thing we talked about previously, the applicable formats, where it doesn't sound like much, but this is quite important. This is where this block can be displayed. So let's put course view and true. And then we also need some capabilities. I'm going to call this add instance. This is again something I didn't know straight up. I mean, I knew we needed to do this, but in terms of using the skeleton generator that I needed to do this, I wasn't unaware. So this is something we can perhaps improve on. And it's context. So you wouldn't know this straight up. This is something I've had to learn going through the process. Editing teacher. Allow. And clone permissions from prepared that also. So I prepared this, so I'm cheating a little bit here. Okay, once we have set up all the information, the final step is download plugin skeleton. It's here. That will download the zip file for us. So let's try that. And if we have an error, we'll actually see the error, but luckily we did not have an error. And the zip file has been downloaded. You can see it here on the lower left. And we can actually go through now and install that. So let's do it. Let's actually install our new plugin and see how it goes. Plugins, install plugins. Remember, we're doing this all on the Cloud9 IDE, so we actually go through and edit our plugin also on the Cloud9 IDE. We don't have to install anything locally, and we have the benefit that we can share and collaborate with this IDE. We can clone it should we need to, so it's really quite useful. How are we going for time? Super sneaky Pukunui, yeah. We're running a little bit low on time, so hopefully we can do this, finish up quickly. Okay, so we drag our block zip file into the install plugin drag and drop files area, and then we click install plugin from the zip file. It goes through, seems to validate successfully, continue. Hopefully we won't have an error and we can all get on our way. This morning we had a little bit of an issue here because I was on the hotel Wi-Fi and it did time out. It was perhaps a bit unfortunate because most of the time it goes pretty well. But with any luck, we'll get through the installation here and we can actually see our super sneaky plugin on the course page. That's our installation going for the our installation going. Okay. This is the actual installation. Remember, we have two workspaces going here. We have the one that we actually created from scratch, and we have one which I started in the beginning, or started halfway through, in order to teach us how to use the plugin skeleton generator because of the time factor. So I'll quickly jump back over to our plugin installation, which we're doing now. And we have super sneaky Pukunui showing up there. Upgrade Moodle database now. Upgrading to a new version. Come on. Come on, team. Well, Big Blue Button's doing a pretty good job so far, so we have to give it a thanks to Big Blue Button. It's handling this pretty well, even though I'm jumping between workspaces and browsers and using screen sharing and PowerPointing simultaneously. Now, this is the installation of Moodle into our development environment. It's still going. Okay. I'll tell you what, we're getting a bit close to time, and I know that we have another presentation probably coming along at the hour mark, so I better probably close up here. So I do apologize because I wanted to finish, but I didn't manage my time well, and the process took a little bit longer than I thought. But if you look at the PowerPoint presentation, you will see that all the information is in there, so you can actually go through this process yourself, and if you wish to, you can create a development environment for Moodle on Cloud9, and if you have any troubles, you can get in touch with me. If you have any questions now would be a good time to put those into the chat area and I can answer them.
So maybe we have time for a few quick questions, either if somebody's got the microphone or in the chat. And while we're waiting for that, because we are short on time, I just want to take the time right now to thank you, Justin, for presenting at iMoot. Yeah, always fascinating to see this, and really crazy demo. I mean, you really took it. You were brave to do all this live demo, and really good stuff. So thank you again, once again, and yeah, props. Thanks very much.
No problem. Thanks. I do apologize that we couldn't get all the way through. I guess if we had a little bit more time, a little bit more grunt, perhaps we could have seen the whole thing. But yeah, I hope it was useful for you all. And if you're interested in developing with Moodle, stay in touch, and I wish you all the best.
And there is a forum in this course, so I mean, we could post questions. If somebody's got a question, post it to the forum. Really, in the iMoot site, there's forums everywhere. So post it to the forum, and we'll find a way to get the question to Justin and get your answers out to you.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good evening or morning, whichever it is for you.
All right. Thank you.